Welcome everyone to the Cincinnati School Board's Budget, Finance, and Growth Committee. We meet regularly on the third Thursday of every month. Even though it is the first day of school, we are still meeting and are excited and happy to be here, and hopefully can learn some ideas and thoughts as we move to the future regarding finances, budget, but most particularly today too, growth. So we have both our other members of the Finance Committee. I'm Eve Fulton. We have Ryan Messer and we have Melanie Bates. And we have a number of guests today. And we're going to kind of move through the agenda based upon who's here at the time, because it is the first day of school. So as we do that, I would welcome our wonderful preschool promise team to share with us where they are. They report every month. Almost always it's good news. And if it isn't good news, it will be by the time they fix whatever wasn't good. They are positive, upbeat, and we just appreciate that partnership. Go right ahead.
Thanks for the vote of confidence. We appreciate that.
Sure.
So we shared with and distributed Superintendent Amon and to the full board our July 15th report in compliance with the master agreement. That is a precursor to our annual report. Just a snapshot of output. That information will also be used to build our annual report, which will be released at our September 21st annual meeting. What you see in the report right now is a snapshot. While we're in that transition to the start of the new year and our new dashboard is being built to show you where we are with enrollment. Most important thing, we're pleased to say that our extended learning session during the summer this year served 477 students compared to 360 last year, and our projection this year is 305. So we were very pleased by that growth that we saw for students that were 3, 4, and 5 previously enrolled to have those 3 months during the summer of tuition assistance for that extended learning session. Current enrollment numbers as of last Friday is that we had 397 approved. As you can see, 52 signed and 92 on the pending list, 547 applications total process. I can tell you that all of those numbers have changed by at least about 20 to 30 over the last week, and we expect that will continue. So that's just a snapshot of preliminary data. At our future monthly meetings, we will be back to our full dashboard and all of the reporting on that. We also wanted to give you an update that you'll see on the next slide on the step up to quality challenges that we reported to you at the last month's meeting and what was happening with the Ohio General Assembly and the budget. Pleased to say that there have been some victories. Publicly funded child care eligibility was expanded from 142% to 150%. That's estimated to serve an additional 6,000 children. The good news for us is that it also means that less preschool promise dollars will be used, because as the last dollar in, those amounts in tuition will be funded by the publicly funded child care dollars. We also had some assurances with the budget process that the ARPA funds that have been designated for heroes pay will remain intact, and that those funds will be used to sustain child care, stabilize the system, and improvements in child care work. On the next slide, you'll also see one of the most important and crucial things is that the mandate that every provider has at least 1 star to receive publicly funded child care by 2020 remained intact. We were not able to get the 2025 mandate to remain, and that was that every provider had at least 3 stars by 2025 to receive publicly funded child care. But what was implemented is a study commission of 30 members to look at step up to quality. They have a mandate by December to devise an alternative path, suggest an alternative path for community providers to reach at least 1 star. They also have the next year to look at the data, survey the system, make recommendations and comments on the entire step up to quality. As you can imagine, the data that has been gathered by Preschool Promise and the initiative that we have is crucial in showing the ongoing impact of how high-quality preschools provide not only stabilization to the early childhood education network, but the actual benefits it has to students that attend in their kindergarten readiness and long-term. We will be working closely to make sure that that data gets in the right hands. Lastly, on the next slide, you will see our upcoming events. Thanks to a successful pitch night, we will be having a back-to-school preschool jam on August 28th in Westwood, where all of our parents who are enrolled are invited to attend this jam. And we've asked every parent to bring a family with them that's not yet enrolled in preschool or has a youngster that's moving in that direction. It'll also be an introduction to many of our families to music education with Linton Chamber Music in their PB and Jam sessions, to identify the 5 preschool classrooms and sites that will be interested in partnering for the remainder of the year on that music education. So we're very excited. That's what the people voted for. At Pitch Night is a new initiative that we would start to drive that extended social emotional learning and development, additional education opportunity, and it also serves as a community engagement with parents to help those providers maintain their step-up to quality points on that 5th. We're excited about that event. We're not sure that all parents will be happy with us because every kid will go home with a musical instrument that makes lots of noise, either a tambourine or a recorder, but we're excited that they have that. Our annual meeting where we will elect our new board will be on September 21st. Thank you for sending the nominations from CPS promptly. Those were reviewed by the governance committee this morning and will be placed on the slate. And we have a special meeting this year on September 28th where Innovations will be presenting our year 4 guide. So good news. We will not, as you know, have our normal KRA results because of what happened this year, but Innovations has done a careful analysis to tell us the progress that's been made, also a full list of recommendations of what we should continue to do and also areas for us to have improvement. And I feel confident after looking at the previews that have been released to us that we are on target for all of our goals for year 4, despite the pandemic.
I know that Mr. Messer's happy about the dashboard.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments from members?
I just say thank you. I continue to hear great things in the community about our collective effort. That we're getting more and more kids in those seats. We're going to just everybody in the long term. So thank you for your continued work there. I do have one question is Father Graham remaining in the role of?
So Father Graham retired from the board of management, and Dr. Odell Owens has been our board chair.
Okay.
Yes.
I have missed that.
Yes.
That change. So thank you for that.
Did make that transition at our annual meeting last year. Had a great retirement event for him, and have been so fortunate to be led by one of our founding board members, Dr. And I will also say as a preview to that collective work and collaboration, while we do know that we set targets for enrollment much lower given the pandemic for last year. We had set 500 for a good goal, 600 for a stretch goal. And when I looked at our numbers, we had reached about 740 students last year for. So that's just a testament to what's happening with the community providers and the collective impact. That despite COVID, we were still able to reach families and children. And that is thanks to what we've done together in a great partnership. And we're always appreciative of your team and your support because that partnership and support makes us.
And then the last thing is, I get asked a lot about this as the Washington administration talks a lot about universal preschool.
Absolutely.
What do we expect in reality? Obviously, you're much closer to the day-to-day and probably watching things happening in Washington and that type of thing. What's the likelihood, and what would that impact be? And then would that negate the need for a levy as it's structured today if it were to happen? So that's just a question I've gotten.
So we will throw out some things that are conjecture and what we're watching and what data we'll have to look at to see. But the best that we can tell from our intel that has been working on the Hill and reports that we get is that there will remain something related to preschool support in that final bill, probably not at the financial levels that we're anticipating. Our hope is that they will have what we call a mixed or diverse model so that funding for preschool that comes down is both for public preschool classrooms and for community. If that does not happen, it will cause a destabilization to the system that I don't think anybody is. So that's really what we're focused on. If that opportunity comes and there's a scale back, we know and anticipate that there will be an ongoing need for investments like the one made with this levy, because if there is money for tuition assistance, if there is money for access, will there also be sufficient time to make sure that there are high quality seats, sufficient numbers of high quality seats, and that those high quality seats. What we are seeing across the entire footprint of early childhood education is that the number of available seats is shrinking because the number of available educators and classrooms also shrinking in the workforce that we're all seeing. So there are endless opportunities to make sure that those funds remain directed at preschool expansion, but perhaps in different ways. If our first and primary immediate need is met, which is that we remove the financial barrier, which is tuition assistance, then how do we remove the other barriers to making sure there are adequate quality seats, adequate quality instructors, and those instructors are paid adequate wages for retention and ongoing professional. So we're monitoring it closely, but our role really has been to look at, even if the funds are appropriated at the federal level, they have left it in all other cases for the state to make it. So how can we influence or weigh in with data and our learned experiences to say how will Ohio choose to use the funds that come to it? Because that will also be important. So for the foreseeable future, there is a place and a role for preschool promise, but it would be our greatest joy to put ourselves.
Thank you.
I will now turn it over to Hector Polanco, our finance director, to give a financial update, which is about our individual.
We have books here too for enrollment to CPS. Great, thank you. Yes, sir, hit it.
All right, so as the committee knows, I love colors. So you will see here in your first chart, everything in blue was an underspend. On the far right column, items in white were over budget. But the crux of it is we underspend by $2.6 million. Although I've provided the key differences versus budget underneath and reconciled basically 90% of the underspend, the key point is COVID, right? Yes, we have fewer students, but why? The COVID. Yes, we didn't spend as much in quality improvement, but why? Because of COVID. COVID closed some places, many places, except for the pandemic for some time. And then when they reopened, part of the year had already passed. But also, COVID hit the supply chains, right? So people who used to be teachers and left during COVID weren't available to fill a room, so then we couldn't put children in the room, right? Same for items for inside the classroom. Everything was impacted. So although you have very particular items listed, I would simply grab a nice thick brush and go COVID-19 all over that. Next chart, or the next document, and stop me at any point if you have questions, but I'll just continue through and take them at the end also if you like, wherever you like. The next item is, again, I love color. You will see everything with a box that is darker is fiscal year 21. Everything that doesn't have a box and is lighter is fiscal year 20. In orange are the CPS tuition assistance enrolled students, and in blue are CPP. And this is an easy way, I thought, for you to see this dramatic impact that both of our organizations have from one year to the next. The orange columns, which are CPS tuition assistance students, are significantly smaller than the year before, and so are the blue ones for CPP tuition assistance. Jointly, which is the sum of one on top of the other, we have hundreds of students that we did not support. So although I do not speak for the district, I can almost guarantee that your tuition assistance numbers were lower than you expected. Next slide shows you just the CPP numbers. And here what I've done is I've gone across 3 years. So the blue line is last year, and it's the lowest line, and it shows how many tuition assistance payments were made for children in the program. So therefore, in August of fiscal year 21, which was August of 2020, there were 287 children that CPP paid for tuition assistance. The year before that, we had 450. So that is a significant drop, and you see that gap. Now, the one positive item, which Sarah alluded to, is if you look at the end of the blue line, you see how that slope is going up, and we're gaining children and children and children. So we went from roughly 528 children in January to 653 in May. And again, these are payments made. So there were 653 payments made for tuition assistance in May. What we're seeing now is that we're returning to the levels of the red line, which is the highest line we've had, which is fiscal year 19. So we're very, very excited for the new year. I'm going to take a pause there before I get into the really nitty-gritty of the details of some financial numbers. Any questions?
Nope.
Excellent. Then the next slide will show you we have between us the unspent carryover funds question that comes every year, and there's a report every year, and every year, because of how the Ohio state auditor early in our history came down with a decision that we needed to return significant amount of unspent funds back to the district every year. This is the process we use to do that. We calculate the amount that was provided to CPP, the amount that we used, and then that leaves a certain amount of unspent funds. We calculate the new year budget, and then we subtract from that budget the unspent funds so that the district is not sending the full amount to us for the new fiscal year. Again, when there are unspent funds, which was the case last year. So this is simply the report that I provide for Jennifer Wagner, the treasurer of the district, at the end of every year so that she can incorporate it into her financials and ask for the funds that CPP would use in the upcoming year. I include it here because I report to this committee every year what those numbers are and how they're being used. And that is it.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
So if you recall, in September, we do the contract to United Way, the annual payment, move this payment schedule so that the board knows when the dollars flow. So you've seen this for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so this will be included in probably not Monday, but the following.
And while I have you up there, if you would say, what Shara mentioned about the last dollar in, just for the public that may be viewing, can you just briefly explain what that means as to that funding impacting our costs and our expenditure?
So we're also last dollar in. So all of our, and Vera could probably speak to this much more directly than I can, but all of our state and federal grants get, and general fund stuff gets applied first. And then students who qualify take advantage of the levy money. It's tuition assistance. Did I answer your question?
Yes, and I think that's a great model. People don't are aware of that, so every chance we get to that. It's not, it is additional dollars, but it doesn't, it's not forgetting the initial, the real dollars we start with. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful report. Vera, I think it's you.
So actually, I'm going to introduce the enrollment for the district and then defer to Vera specifically about preschool. Shauna Murphy couldn't be here today. She sent her apologies. But as of this morning, I'm pleased to report preliminarily that we are over 36,000 students enrolled. 36,176, which is, yeah. Keep in mind, the schools are processing so incoming students, and we typically have no-shows, and all this will be finalized in a couple weeks. But just comparatively speaking, last year on this day, we only had 35,702 students, so we're 474 higher than we were this time last year. Pre-COVID, in August 19th, we were 140 students higher than we are today. So we are really closing that gap again.
I think that's critical. I think we've heard that from school after school, and we also know that preschool is a huge part of the growth that the district has in reality. And last year, even we know growth in our high school situation as well. So that's great news. That's really good work on recruitment and also an act of faith on the part of the community.
And a huge shout out to CFT who hit the roads and knocking on doors, helping to recruit students.
They use that grant that they received, and I think very, very wisely. Brooks?
So I first want to say thank you to board and interim superintendent and just the entire CPS team. Today has been a wonderful day. I've been out and about all over, and the tone and the happiness and joy has just been amazing. So I wanted to say thank you. I'm happy to report that our projections for this year, at the beginning of the year, was 1,399 students for preschool, knowing that in the strategic plan, our goal is 2,200 students. As of today, we have 1,226 students enrolled in preschool in our district, with a total of 176 more applications being processed as we speak. Our hubs, I have to give total credit to my ECE team under the direction of Maggie Neighbor and our enrollment registration hubs in the model, because they have been out in collaboration with communications engagement in our block parties, and we've been dancing, all that good stuff. Really letting our families know, and I've never seen so many happy faces today as parents dropping off their children, and children just enjoying the day. So it's been a wonderful opening. So we are on our way to meeting our projection and actually bypassing it and heading towards that 2,200.
Great.
Any questions?
Questions?
Well, I echo that. Got one of your preschoolers who's very excited, especially that Kaden is again in her class this year. She's very excited about that. I've yet to meet Kaden, but it was very important that it was the first thing that came out. So congratulations, and I will tell you, I think I've seen it everywhere. I love those signs, proud home of a CPS preschooler. It's good. As you know, we think about kind of getting to those goals. There's also the nuance of, or what I hear the most is, I got in, but just didn't get full day. I really want full day. And I wondered, do we track how many requested full day versus how many got? And, is that a broad spread problem? I just feel like I've heard it a lot lately, and I really don't know how to respond.
Almost all of our sites, and we have 135 sites this year because we opened a classroom at Winton and at Mount Washington, which I'm happy to say Mount Washington has just filled very quick. Those sites all have full day. The areas that we have half day are lottery admin. We would love to give full day. It would be a matter of staffing, because we do have to have added staff for the afternoon program. So I haven't done a poll. I know I can get you the numbers of how many have requested full day that we were not able to fulfill. But then I can also get you the numbers very quickly of how many are actually in full day across the district in our typical classrooms and also in our magnet or Montessori classrooms.
Yeah, and I think that would be worthwhile. And, I think we pay more
Yes.
for a full day, so maybe that would offset some of the expense of then being able to add. But I think it would be worth.
Well, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that we have a variety of funding sources. So we do have tuition paying families across our district, not just in the Montessori's, but all the way across. Along with across our district, we have Head Start, ECE grant, and also tuition assistance with our great partners to my left. Thank you. So we have a variety of funding sources. So we could possibly look at if buildings are willing to expand full day if there is a need.
Great. Then the only other thing is, I owe $800 for Lillian's tuition. And
Well, pay it up.
exactly, they're going to dock my pay for the school board. And the problem
I
is,
heard that.
we bank in Kentucky, so you have to go across the mess of the bridge for us to get a check, because I didn't realize we had like a daily limit, like you can only get so much. So the point is, I know the treasurer's office is helping, but the sooner we can process credit cards, you can just pay it. Sooner the better. I think it's absolutely unbelievable. We can't have that. We don't have it in 2021 and a whole bit, but hopefully that can. And I know it's coming, but I heard it got stalled when there's a transition or whatever. But
Yes.
sooner the better, because it's the same issue as last year.
Yes, because that is in the works, and we actually do have one of our senior supports who does do the processing, working with the treasurer's office, and we are hoping that will be up and running very, very soon. My goal, hopefully, is by the end of the semester, because we do have to get my staff trained on how to do. But
Great.
yes, we are in hopes of that too. That it would make all of our lives a lot easier.
Miss States.
Yes, and back to the waiting list, but this is in particular the Montessori preschool waiting list, and they still are there. And we talked about, the directive to look at Montessori expansion for next year. The board doesn't want to turn anybody away, and we're turning away people. So I wanted to know if you have started planning yet to include more preschools so that we can kind of pick up those kids. I know, hopefully, the Mount Washington preschool may have picked up some kids on the Sands wait list. I don't know if they have or not, but that's awesome that we have something, going on in Mount Washington. But what are the plans for alleviating the magnet school preschool wait list?
We do our best to fulfill everyone that is on the lottery list. We do offer families another option close to the school. And then we do work closely with the administrators or the principals in the buildings, along with the DSLs, that when a spot does open up, that we are able to offer the next family if they are still interested. I would love to keep expanding interim superintendent life. But that could be something definitely we could look at to continue to expand it in the Montessori. Where it becomes difficult is space.
Mm-hmm.
We have looked at possible at the Gamble location, maybe converting a couple of those preschool classrooms into another form of a Montessori classroom. We have been working with the principal at Sands, also looking at numbers and how we can adjust to meet the needs of the families, because we do want to meet the needs of all the families in any program that they may select.
Well, two things that I would say, and I say this to the treasurer, who already is thinking about fiscal 23. One of the priorities, no rest for the
On
weary.
Tuesday. Not until Tuesday.
No, sorry. Maybe starting to keep the expansion of preschool sites, especially Montessori sites. And this gets into one of our items regarding growth, and this is one of the things that Ms. States has talked about for a very long time, and that is the third Montessori high school. And the reality is, with expanded preschool for Montessori, if we go that direction, that means the space piece is it's possible that one or two of our other elementary schools would phase into being Montessori schools, or if we have any new builds or what have you. Because I think it is becoming quite clear that that is sort of our next layer, if you will. We have our neighborhood schools, we have our exclusive kind of schools that you have to audition for or whatever. We have fewer magnets than we did 10 years ago. And maybe as some of those transition out of magnet, maybe they kind of transition into Montessori. We are known nationwide as a Montessori district, and I think you cash in on that. And it also has proven to be our best efforts at diversity regarding economic class, and also diversity of race and religion. So I think that's an important initiative.
Yeah, and kind of back to the expansion of both high school and preschool Montessori. My daughter, who is now like a 15-year teacher, was among the first class of Montessori middle school. So I was part of the planning for that, so I know enough to be dangerous. But what was talked about then, and what, at the time, and I don't think it's changed because Montessori is a pretty, the methodology and the philosophy doesn't really change, is that preschoolers and middle schoolers are kind of at the same developmental level. And we're putting the preschoolers with the elementary schools. Well, if we're looking at expansion, why not look at putting the preschoolers with the middle schoolers? Just kind of going back to the planning that we had initially. That might be very interesting, and kind of work with Dean and our other Montessori philosophers in our district, and kind of review that and see if that really educationally, academically, that might work. That would be kind of interesting.
New adventure. And we've had success at Rising Stars at Aiken. That's a preschool that's located within a high school setting. And it's been very successful.
Everything at Aiken is.
Well, yes, I right in front. But it's been wonderful to watch the high school children, high school young adults, how protective and how they really do take care of our youngest ones. It's really a beautiful. I did want to give kudos to the principal of Performing Arts. We have been in conversation, and they have agreed that our Ezra Charles site will now become a feeder into their kindergarten program at the Arts. So that is very exciting.
Preschool?
Preschool.
Oh, cool.
Our Ezra Charles site will feed into. Done that for the last 2 years, kind of as a trial basis. But now we're working with communications and engagement to start getting the word out before the next lottery round comes out.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I just want to say that we've also, in partnership with yours, been very successful in saying when there is an overlap or a list to make sure that parents have choice, that we have divided our preschool community providers by those hubs and provided those hubs with regularly updated lists. So as we look at expansion plans and the growth for the strategic plan, I think it will also be important to look at where the growth of community providers is as well, particularly those that are in our quality improvement to reach high quality, and a reassessment that we'll see in this year 4 evaluation of where our quality gap may are. Because they are not the same as they were 5 years ago when we started this. So I think it will be important as we look at that strategic planning for preschool expansion, that we also share with you the data we have from community providers to see how that may influence the plans for growth.
Thank you. Any other topics regarding preschool? And you've written down about Montessori, fiscal 23, and obviously about credit card payments.
We're on that.
You're on that.
I'm hoping to get an answer here, but we'll get you know.
Or Venmo or Zelle. Can you do that?
Well, we use Fiscal. We have an app that we use for people who write tickets, stuff like that.
Not
We're
anymore.
looking at, huh?
Not anymore.
Uh,
Because we're all 3 months.
or not.
I saw the,
We have 12 schools that aren't part of the program.
Okay, that's another topic, because I saw on one of our lats that we are all 3 months in our district. Anyway,
I don't have the time.
Thank
so I
you.
understand what's up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But if there is an app that could help Brian,
Well,
I know.
and my daughter.
yeah, we're also looking at eliminating cash handling in terms of like if students want to buy tickets to the prom, they just download this app, charge their credit card, and they show up at the prom with a QR code on the phone. So we're working through that, but that you're right, it got halted through COVID and the transition in that position. So we'll get you an update.
Just because I always get nervous about the agenda, because we invariably have so much to report regarding preschool, I'm going to skip a little bit here and go to item number 3, and then 4, and then 7, and 8, and 9, which I'm anticipating being somewhat shorter topics. The first one is Hamilton County Tax Incentive Review Council.
That's Ms. Kimberly Hughes, our Assistant Treasurer. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello there.
So I would have to echo Ms. Vera. I went out to the schools today and it was awesome. I was at Bond Hill and Winton Hill, and I would have to give shout outs to both principals. They did very well today.
I think thematically, we're so excited
That was it.
about in-person that and feel like there's some sense of normalcy. We really have to rededicate ourselves in some way, shape, or form
It was
to maintain it in person, which is going to be challenging, of course.
Okay, so I will go briefly. So the Tax Incentive Review Committee, the update was submitted in your packet. The spreadsheet up at the top, it reflects the payments that we received for both fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21. So overall, we received $1.2 million of $1.2 million more in fiscal year 21 than we did in fiscal year 20. We did have our representative to attend the TURP meeting that was held on June the 25th. And what we learned is that the city of Cincinnati itself has 35 total districts that are participating in the TIFs. They have 15 new, and as a result of the 35 districts, they've been able to retain 2,057 jobs for Hamilton County and create 5,245 jobs for Hamilton County. There are 58 projects, TIF projects, but as it relates to CPS, we have 21 active projects, and all of them are in good standing. Any questions?
And are we current on payments?
We are
for
current.
those benefiting from this?
Yes, ma'am. We had one change in a process, so we were not aware that we were supposed to submit an invoice, but we found out this month that we needed to submit an invoice in order to get paid, something we've not done historically. So we've submitted that invoice as of yesterday, and that payment for Amberley Village should come in this month, in September. And then we have the last rollback that should be paid in October of this year.
Thank you. Questions? Very important, but not a lot of questions, but this is super.
So one change that we made was we monthly, we look at the guys, and one of them is the AR aging report to make sure everybody's up to date and the CRA tuition or CRA billing. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your management. And now investment update,
7.
and that's also in your packet, everybody.
This one will probably be the briefest of the night.
Oh, my, okay, Kevin, I don't know. Wax poetic. so,
Right,
hey.
that's true. But this piece, there is a memo included, Red Tree Investments, who handles a lot of our investments, wanted to make sure that we had a report of commercial paper investments. So it's a compliance issue that we're reporting out that we were in compliance. There are particular investments that are authorized by the revised code, authorized per our policy, but they have some additional requirements, and one of them is a reporting requirement. So that's what this outlines. And we'll get that submitted once it goes through the process.
Okay.
So there's a slide, you did a history, right?
Oh, did you want me to cover that piece too? It's within the monthly financials. Through the end of the 21.
It's item 9 on the agenda.
Yes. You're talking about the investment income. So I did an investment income graph for the last 3 years, 3-year history. I think it's either at the very end, the next one, that one right there. And of course, without my glasses, I can't. But I did.
Somebody else has that.
I did write them down So our investment income for all funds in fiscal year 19, 5.1 million. In 20, it was 4.9 million. And then last year was 2.3. As Hector mentioned, COVID and the effects on interest rates and that kind of what led to that difference.
Thank you. While you're there, do you want to cover the monthly financial with any high-level comments or?
Sure, that's fine.
Not every chart, but what you think
Right.
you really need to know.
3 key points each time.
Yes. So one of the items in the packet is the fiscal year-end report. So just a couple of key points there. Our cash balance year over year was up about 8 million. That's of course for the general fund. Revenues for the year were up a little over 8 million as well. Most of that is property tax revenue due to the recent triennial update. And then some other factors, actually CRA and TIF revenue was up, as I mentioned. Expenditures were down, mainly due to shifting some expenses to CARES, as well as our underspend for the budget. The packet relating to July, so now that we're looking at fiscal year 22, just looking at July, our cash balance is up about $3 million, or $30 million, I'm sorry. Part of that is due to the beginning of the year being up about 8 million. And then we have additional revenues around a net of 14. Just I want to point out there, our tax revenues are up pretty significantly, about 23 million, again, for the triennial update, et cetera. One thing, and we're going to get into this, a further discussion in September relating to the state budget and the changes in that, as you're probably aware. The direct pay kids, the money related to that is no longer deducted from our foundation. So what will happen, our revenues will drop significantly, but we will not have to bear those additional expenses. So we'll net to actually a revenue increase. But it will make our financials, as we look at the months and years, it will look like we had a huge loss in revenue, but we'll also have.
But at least it'll be easier to explain to people that those millions of dollars are not necessarily for kids enrolled in CPS.
So we're planning to do a more thorough review of that in September. The other things I had on there was the certificates of participation spend down on the 2018 COPS. That has to be spent down by the end of September. It's down to about $5,000 in encumbrances. So it's just a matter of getting those cleared out by then. And then we just wanted to highlight as well that we're doing a comparison of the appropriations by fund compared to our current spend and encumbrances that are outstanding.
So just to make sure we don't go overspend our 90-day budget on the general fund, right? So gotta make payroll.
Always good to do that.
So I think that covers my point.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Sure.
Janet, Kevin mentioned COPS. I know you talked about COPS a little while ago about some additional monies we might seek through COPS later on.
So we typically use a certificate of participation. It's the financing tool that acts like a capital lease. And we can use that to help with some of our expansion projects if we can't get them into the ESSER. But no other funds come along.
Right. And when will we start pursuing that?
When we finalize the growth plans a little bit firmer.
Okay.
And timing, because you have small windows of time to do this work right before, and then you have to watch the market to make sure that so we're working through some analysis that we'll be presenting in September.
And I do think that speaks again to the urgency regarding the growth, gathering all the discussion. We sitting alongside me are people that have great experience in all of that, and we want to make use of their experience and their wisdom. And there's been so much discussion along the way that kind of catalog it and see where we are, because much has been done and much still needs to be done. But I think it's really a timing issue. Treasurer's goals, and then change of title. Yes.
Before we do that, we always skip over the federal grants. Would you mind?
Well, that's because we love the chart.
I know, but we have some new information on there that you'd be pleased to see, so.
I think this is cool.
And I apologize to the public, it's a huge file, and it's going to be very difficult to read on this.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So we have here the state and federal grants for July. So this is the start of a new year for the state grants. So what we have here, the highlighted columns, the total allocation, which is 54 million. And we have our total encumbrances, which are 1.1 million. And then the other highlighted column, the funding that's available for non-personnel. And then we have our year-to-date spend, including encumbrances. So what is a little different, we did break out the funding that is in regards to COVID. So they have their own section there. So the funding available in response to COVID is $322 million. And we're actually submitting the ESSER 3 application tomorrow. So excited about that.
Today, it was approved today. I said it today.
That's great. So it's approved. I stand corrected. So the ESSER application. So our available funding is $320 million. As of today, we have spent total and the total expenditures at $32 million. So we do have available in our, well, this doesn't include, so the ESSER 3, approximately 20% is going to go to personnel and 80% is going to go to non-personnel. And so then the bottom section is our non-public section. So our spend goal is 7%. To date, we have 27 public grants, and of those 27 grants, 4 have met the 7% spend goal, which is 14.81%. Any questions?
We may skip over often, but every month I say this chart is so helpful. Appreciate you inventing it. It's so critical to merge both
And so
all forms of revenue.
part of our KPIs is we also review this document, KPIs, and Ty and our team meet with all the federal and state grant project managers to make sure their needs are being met and they're staying on top of their spending goals. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer's goals and title change.
Yes.
Treasurer's goals are in our packet.
Yes, so the last time I was requested to add a fifth goal, and it was related to the transparency of the pandemic spend, which you just saw a section of it, and we can talk about whether we want more detail or not.
Yeah, and I think that goes back several months at the suggestion of Mr. Messer.
Yes. We always like the suggestions.
Yeah.
So just really quickly, we make good progress on all of these goals, but the first one is changing the financial service delivery model so that we are doing a proof of concept to take over the financial transactions for some of our schools so that they can focus on teaching and learning. We converted 2 accounting positions to be what we call SPOT, which is Supply Procurement Operations Team. They work very closely with the purchasing department and with the schools. We just hired them. We just had our kickoff and they're getting ready to start, so I'm really thrilled and excited to move forward on that. We will be in September kicking off the new budget cycle. We've already had some conversations with the budget and some feedback as of today and the other night. So we'll be incorporating that into the new budget redesign. We are working hard on a transition plan, and at appropriate time I can give you more details about that. Financial dashboard, we've adopted the software an organization to, because we're actually incorporating our dashboarding with the technology team. And so we're having instead of everybody having their little dashboards and their own technology, validating, working together on them. And then, of course, number 5, we just kind of saw the beginning results of that. So in addition to the 5 or 6 public presentations, and we met with ODE today on some questions some expenses that they were challenging on whether we would put them at ESSER or not. They were very supportive. They also made the comment that much more deliberate in our thinking and planning and doing than other districts, and I thought that was a nice compliment. Any questions on those?
Mr. Messer?
The only suggestion I would make, this is the how. So you will accomplish something by implementing a new financial service delivery model. You'll accomplish something by designing and implementing. I would always put one more above that. What is it that you're seeking to achieve? Increase accessibility and timeliness or whatever of X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
And then how you'll do that, you will implement that by da-da-da-da. You've got those, but I think it's good to call that out very specifically, because then people would say, oh, that's what she's working on?
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to make my life.
So that's in my revision and mission statement. I can call that out and word it out, and so I'll just include it at the top of this.
Yeah, I just think you can put
Yep.
boom, and then
Yep.
this is the how under it.
Yep.
And you can then, to me, as our CFO,
Right.
you're able to sell those
Yeah.
to say these are the things you can expect that are going to make our district even better.
Sure. Happy to do that. I was trying to align these with the strategic initiative.
Yeah.
But we'll do that. Those great suggestions. Thank you.
Would you suggest you should do it for each one, or?
Yeah, I would do for number 1.
One.
What will that? We will, let's see. Establish best-in-class accessibility to financial data. Well, that would be the one for dashboard.
Yeah.
So you're going to do that by implementing this. So it's really, what are these latter 2 that somebody can say, oh, that's some stuff.
Great. Thank you.
Change of title, and Lauren has given us also for our packet the kind of history and justification, and I know Jen wants to present too verbally the justification and some of the reasoning.
Well, so it started out at a conversation at so to make recommendation title. Lauren and I did, she did most of the research. I came up with some ideas, but so my recommendation would be to change the title to Chief Audit Executive, simply because she's a direct report to the board, and you don't have directors that report to you. And how many districts did we look at?
So I pulled in your packet there the legal size paper. And good afternoon, by the way. It's wonderful to see you all. So in the larger paper you have there, that is the 2019 Council of Great City Schools benchmarking study that was completed among the internal audit departments at the various districts. This is the most recent study that has been completed, but it gives us a good sense in what is best practice and what we frequently see. So at the top of that sheet there, you'll see 13 of the 29 districts polled have a chief audit executive. Those that do not have a director is the highest lead. But then we can see there those 13 districts specifically called out.
We're in pretty good company.
I would say so.
The audit feedback was there was 2 concerns. One, that a director would be seen as a step down, and she wouldn't get the recognition and authority or respect of that role that is intended to be. And the second one was about her independence to the treasurer of the superintendent.
I know 2 of us were here when this position was created, and feel it's kind of a restoration as to what the vision was. But in reality, all the work we've been doing, there was some confusion maybe by people out there that didn't really realize all that you needed to be able to do independently. So that's great. Appreciate it. And Jen, this would be your recommendation, correct?
Yes.
And Lauren, are you happy with that? Are you?
Absolutely.
We want to keep our internal auditor, director, chief. That's your new name is Chief now. That's going to be my nickname.
Thank you. No, I truly am honored that the board wants to elevate this position. And as Treasurer Wagner said, this really speaks to the interest of the board and the audit committee to ensure that the internal audit function is viewed internally and externally as an independent body that represents the interests of the board via the finance and audit committees. And I think this title is true to form. And in terms of the memo I put in front of you, I think we all did a great job with the background, but I wanted to provide some additional considerations from a little bit of a logistics. What is the impact of a title change and what things may we consider if this is the will of the board. So I did reach out to General Counsel Dan Hoying to confirm that there would not be any implications on the employment terms. He said everything would continue along just fine. The only consideration that I would ask for the talent development department is I know that they will want to have an understanding of whether the position should continue to be treated in the same employment group as directors, or since it now shares a chief title more similar to PLT, should the position be treated in the same employment group as senior manager. So I think that determination from the board will give them clear determination the employment, back end type things that you want.
Yeah, the category that it should be considered under.
Correct.
Than what it has been.
Correct.
Now, help me out. Is that a policy thing? Is that a policy committee? Is that a finance committee, audit committee? Is it the superintendent saying that, directing the talent? I mean, I'm not sure what the lines of authority would be there. Or is it the board saying it to the superintendent and the superintendent saying it to the talent department?
So based on the research that I've done so far, I actually pulled back the board policy that covers this. So the first attachment that you have there is 6836 Internal Audit Charter. So that takes us right into the other consideration. There would be a minor impact on the policy, changing the director to that chief audit executive title. But if you kind of flip where the two pages, two sections come together, the final page of the policy, I added some language there to help address this. So there is clear determination. And you can see in the highlighted section there, it says that the position will follow the terms of CAS, but rather as the chief audit executive, the internal auditor will follow the same employment terms as the senior management group, if that is the will of the board.
Well, that being the case, then if the committee is okay with it, and if the treasurer and superintendent, then this is a revision of policy. We will send it to the board policy committee. Is that okay?
Sounds great to me.
All right. Thanks for doing all our work.
Oh, no, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Just as always, the most thorough.
That's why.
I mean, I was looking at that report like.
That's why she's chief.
You want this? I love benchmarking. Boy, that was like quality benchmark.
Very much. So in terms of next steps, is it appropriate for us to take this audit committee meeting on August 25th and then on to the full board if they so choose on the 13th of September, I believe?
We're going to check. When's the policy committee is the last Thursday of August. That's going to be after the audit committee, right?
That actually is great timing. So in the second paragraph on the memo there, we'll just add one additional step. It'll go from finance to audit to policy to superintendent's report under a change.
That'd be great.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Right.
And I'm unable to make it on Wednesday, so I just want to.
I think I can do it. And we'll know. Okay, great. Now, the busiest person in the district is going to be happy to know she doesn't have to report anything about transportation or children or where everybody is or what's happening. But if you'll hit the podium, this is really related more to both the Metro contract and then also an update on the other vendors and where we may be contractually as we look to making determinations about next year. And also, and I'm sure as a result of everything we've all gone through, some revisions too as we anticipate the next year of contracts. So if you would, tell us where we are contractually with our vendors.
Okay, so we have verbal agreements with Yellow Bus vendors, and we have a
contract that has now been submitted to Dan Hoyne for review, and then approval by the treasurer, through the treasurer's report. But we have settled on the terms for the yellow bus contracts. We do still need to negotiate a contract with Metro for this year. And so that is at the top of the priority list for us coming up. We plan to do RFP for next year for yellow bus service. Our goal is to have that by the end of September, issued the RFP for next year's services by the end of September. Regarding the Metro budget for this year, the change from extra service to regular service is expected to give us a cost savings. However, we are incurring other expenses in order to make the transition plan work, and we are still putting together those figures. But just to give you some examples, we are adding additional city crossing guards, so that contract will increase, as well as overtime and additional assignment hours for our own staff will be extra costs we're incurring, as well as some equipment like crossing guard equipment. And so by next week, we should have the analysis put together for those additional expenses that would offset the savings for the Metro contract.
Numbers. I have just a few, but again, the confusion I have is, are we currently in the fifth and last year of the agreement back in 17 or 18 or whatever it was? So
yes.
what
Yes,
are we
I'm
doing
sorry,
about this year if
Yes.
it already was settled allegedly, and this is part of a 5-year program
Yes,
that got changed?
Thank you. I did misspeak. So this is the 5th year of a 5-year contract with Metro, but we do an amendment every year that states the rates for the regular passes and the rates for the extra service or the extra service routes. So that amendment is what we don't have in place for this school year.
Okay, so we're doing the usual amendment, but it will be different, but it's a usual practice, let's say.
Correct, yes.
Okay, and the costs, I understand the additional costs. I'm sure those will have to be reviewed as well, not just implemented. But I'm concerned about the safety features that we would be putting in. What does that mean? Is that the city's responsibility? I know they're not required by law to put that kind of infrastructure in. We're not painting crosswalks.
No, what I was referring to was our own staff overtime as well as the city crossing guards.
Okay, so it's not that we're not doing, but we should be requesting of the city that they do certain things.
Yes, I wasn't including crosswalks or signs.
Great, the infrastructure. And in fairness to them, they're not required by law. Because if I could, I'd like to ask also, because you have been so good about the Safe Routes to School Master Plan, the original one, and then the next one, and I know that's through Health and Safety Committee. Where are we on that additional Safe Routes to School plan?
Yes, so the city, so I'm in contact with the city's Vision Zero coordinator, Mel McVeigh, and she has been giving me updates about quarterly on their projects, their infrastructure projects that they are funding both through the Safe Routes to School grant as well as their own city funds that they've set aside for Vision Zero. And so I've been getting those updates for her. I am reaching out to her to revisit the list of priorities now that we have a different situation now with the Metro services. And so, I can bring forward any discussion or updates that may come out of that.
Chair of Health and Safety, would you be assuming that kind of responsibility? Maybe that Mel McVeigh and Sarah could be reporting what the city is doing to make streets safer, or is that shouldn't come to finance, it should go to you all?
Yeah,
right?
we can move it over. I'm not sure if Monday will you have information on Monday, or should we move this to a September agenda item.
September would be great.
Okay.
Can I ask one?
Please.
One question while we're on this, and I think I brought it up in one of our meetings, it's just my gratitude for it. I would like to understand how and all that we're doing, how this happened. The motor speedway that we call Clinton Springs in front of North Avondale, it was like literally I almost cried on the way to the pool this summer when they started building those bump outs. And so you now, instead of two big streets where people are kind of going around, and it brings them in, and they're beautifully done, and it just, everything through there. So how did that happen?
I can find out through Ms. McVeigh.
Because I'm wondering if that was,
I think it's the original Safe Routes to School, one of the items. And when was the original one? That was 7, 8 years ago. I think that was actually one of the items. I don't know why, I think I remember that.
so they had a list, and they're just slowly but surely go through them, because it is a night and day difference.
Yeah.
And my hope is these types of things are happening other places too. It just was like, even watching it today, and I even said something to our crossing guard because he was basically managing 4 lanes.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like, because there's parking when there wasn't parking, because people sneak around, so kind of made that other lane. And now the kids have fewer steps to cross, and it's calmed all that. So huge kudos to whoever did that. That's the exact kind of thing that will keep our kids safe.
I think we were the first district to have the first master plan of safe routes to school in Ohio anyway. And it was a $1 million grant that was awarded. The city and the district shared. The city had to do all the stuff. So I think that's where the money went. And we've always had some controversy that maybe they only spent about $600,000 of it. And that, I know we've had that. And then the second safe routes to school, the update, or what's that called?
It's still called Safe Routes to School.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, school track plan.
And, okay, does it exist?
Yes.
So we have these master plans to live by. Both the city and the district have adopted, Vision Zero. So everything's out there. Like, you'd like to see the bigger picture,
Yeah.
of moving towards something. I just think that's.
Because there's a little girl who
who
came to present about the sidewalk where there wasn't, it was somewhere on the east end.
Like Mount Washington.
So I think those 2 documents plus those 2 resolutions, and then having this go to health and safety in September would be great. And again, if this is over or not over, we're not sure yet. There's still a group certainly hoping to moderate or modify in a larger way what we've lived through today and are scheduled to live through in this coming year. So I don't think it's an issue that's finished, but it might need some context, and that might give it some.
And then I think you're full service.
So to formalize this, I don't know if either Pat or Phyllis or which one of them is online. Hi, Phil. Anyway, have this,
She's in the ceiling.
Oh, have this as an assignment from finance to health and safety so that it's formalized in our minutes and agreed upon by the board.
Yeah, same with the policy thing on the change of title.
Right, yeah, that's an assignment also. And then the board can accept the minutes and minutes formalized then. Thanks.
That's it.
And then just, if I could just put what you said, which once it gets over to health and safety, like hopefully it can just be built into that committee's work plan going forward.
Yes.
Because I'm in year 4 of the board, I've never seen a master plan or any progress towards it. There should be an annual review of that.
Absolutely.
Now we have this health and safety committee, I think having that just built into one of the months.
I think it worked in the old days. I think it worked through the student achievement committee. I know that's like where Dave Hapner was reporting as well, and yeah. And if you could write down the status of those contracts so that Phyllis can have that properly noted in the minutes, that would be great. School budgets?
Yes, so you have a packet in front of you
Yes, we do.
that was hot off the press as of 3:15. So the top pages are the school budget highlights, where we added teachers and what types of the personnel we added to the school budgets. Then the next document is a summary of the schools alone, just general fund and school-wide pool. So it's combined Title I and general fund. So you have summaries by school, and then I gave you a same summary but by object code. So what's the general ledger account code? The reports behind that is much more detailed, and it's by school, by object code. So, for example, for the first school on the list is AMI. I summarized all the personnel because there's like 25 different codes that go over there. Just too busy. So $4.6 million of personnel, and you can see how they allocated enrollment and not personnel dollars by school choice for the most part. Some things we force them to do, and then their totals. And so, in a nutshell, $353.6 million is allocated into the school budgets, which represents 58% of the total budget. However, there's another $160 million that's budgeted centrally, but actually the spend actually occurs out in the schools. For example, the custodians. They are budgeted by the facilities department, but they're actually coded to the school where they serve. So if you just look at the budget unit for the facilities, it looks big, but these people actually work out in the schools. So if you add that extra dollars, the total school spend is $513.9 million, which represents 84% of our spend. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So we now have the ability to pivot on these different ways of budgeting so we can truly report what's actually spent out in our buildings. So it's the school budgets plus what the central office budgets on their behalf. Technology, and then we have like transportation. The cost of transportation gets allocated out by students out in the schools. Just the service part, not the central administration part. Technology is the same way. The Department of Student Services, they budget all the one-on-one pairs and LPNs centrally, but they're actually working out in the building, supporting that cable out there. So, and we're also working at creating a report that shows that. I have a draft of it, I'm not ready to make it public yet, and then calculate a per pupil value on the spend by each school. Eventually we'll add all the funds in so that we can do a per pupil value by school of all the funds that are spent there. So we're stepping forward towards that.
Great, so this is our initial kind of dive into the school budgets, because we want to keep following up on that.
Correct.
I know I'm particularly interested in the staffing piece. How many intervention teachers, how many specialists, how many whatever. So I think that's an area of it.
Okay, so what I'll do is present that in October after TAC, because remember, this is all built off of projected students.
No problem.
So it's going to change by then, so we'll do the FTE analysis for you by then.
And before I take Ms. Bates' question, the one thing I'd also add is the number of individual kinds of program contracts in schools, where schools are contracting out for particular services.
Okay.
I think that would be telling, and the staffing, those are the two things I'm most interested in. Ellen, I'm sorry I didn't interrupt you.
No, I haven't even said everything.
Okay, good.
No. I think what would also be very helpful is to have the enrollment of the school included, because, some of these look like, and from an equity standpoint.
Yes.
That's one.
So that's the report I was telling you we're working on building. It actually shows the per pupil and then like how much money we put in equity. You can't tell here what's equity, what's not, how much we put in for Vision 2020, and then do the per pupil there. That's the report we're working on. So look at, but we'll bring it to you as soon as effective. So yes, that's what I'm trying to get to, a per pupil. It used to be 100 years ago. I used to think, Walton Hills is just such a huge budget, but we're actually the most efficient per pupil. Yes. So,
and so that also, if you can include the number of children with, in that with special services, so we know, if the school has a particularly high number and that's why the budget is higher, or, from an equity standpoint, is this a real imbalance? Should some of these students be placed in other areas, in other schools.
So the total students with disabilities in ELL.
Mhm.
Do you want gifted as well?
Do we budget more for gifted?
Not in the way we do budgeting now, the schools kind of do that now, but based on this, and we're gonna go through this in number, but based on the state formula, those categories get different funding sources, and they're gonna hold us accountable to that spend on that, on like the gifted, I'll have to show how we spent the gifted money on gifted students.
Yeah, then include that.
So, okay.
I think until we do all that, that might help us change or moderate or modify our definition of equity.
Right, so even if we weren't thinking about redoing the whole budget, this new state formula is gonna drive us to that.
Yes. which
And
is
I'm really trying to get to a visual where we can show, this is what the state formula funds, because they have staffing formulas based on the students by total district. And the argument I had with Mike Sowell, the point I was trying to make with them was, in a district our size, only funding on staffing at district level is gonna be difficult for the urban, because when you divide it out to 65 different buildings, there's gonna be a gap, and we're not gonna through the state foundation formula. So I'm gonna prove that to them when I get the simulation done. But, so what I'm gonna show graphically is, this is what the state foundation pays for, this is what our locally property taxes layers onto that, and then all of our grants that supplement that. Show it by the school level. So, I see it in my head, I just haven't figured out how to put it all together yet. I'll bring it to you. Great.
Other comments, questions? So we will be diving into schools, and I think that'll be helpful.
But I guess the only thing is, one thing that, it's out here, we'd always hear like, oh, principals, principals don't have their budgets or whatever. This says, once we get the finals, right, then they will have it, the final counts.
No. They have their budgets. It's not loaded in Business Plus because you guys haven't adopted the full year budget.
Yeah, okay.
So they've been spending money as they come to me. I had a conversation. Julie called me Friday night. I explained to her teacher I can't spend my budgets. Yes, they can. They just follow the normal process. It's just harder on us to manually track that. But their budgets will be adjusted based on actual.
Thank you.
So I was going to ask in other business, but it's kind of relevant to this now. We're asking you to approve the budget on Monday night. Do you want a presentation in addition to all the other approaches we did, or do you want just the appropriations resolution?
I'm budgeted out.
Yeah, I mean, is it going to look any different than anything else?
No.
Take a picture of that, take that, and budget it out.
Yeah.
You wore me down, you wore me out, and we have a better.
Yeah. So we will provide, so the only thing, well, based on any other new federal grants that we've gotten, I don't know about that, but the only other changes were the school-wide pool and the general fund will be an annual allocation, appropriation. All the other funds we already did, and to change the list, we got more information. Thank you.
No, I think we're good on this. I just think we have to, like I said, start building the next one.
Yes.
And,
You have a full day aligned in September to work on it.
yes, good. Okay, and now let's do this, the growth piece, if we can. And we highlighted it a little bit before, talking about the Montessori growth and the push that Ms. Space has been making for years, I think rightfully so. You already told us that the ESSER is taking care of the Walnut Dome, right?
ESSER 2 is
ESSER
Walnut
2.
Dome. ESSER 3 is Walnut, Pleasant Ridge, and Hyde Park.
Okay, and so that's what we need to know. And that you mentioned that COPS would have to be secured possibly for the next part of the growth plan, that we don't know what it is yet, but.
Well, COPS or a levy, or, you have different options. I know we don't want to go out on the health, but something to think about. And, I don't know if any new funding is going to come from the federal government on capital improvement. I know there was some in the American Job Act, but it wasn't station. So, at least not to my knowledge, so.
And at least on the list of possibilities, if I recall, actual build-outs, if you will, or big physical changes, help me out. That was the Jacobs property, Hughes Annex.
The one that was in Esther that we took out was the estimate for Hughes, because we didn't have a plan for it.
Right, Hughes Annex.
Jacobs, I don't think we had an estimate on, and Rawson.
But we've gotten some expert advice that the best thing to do with that location or that building is possibly not try to renovate it. Is that what I've, at least have heard? Renovation is difficult and it's better to start afresh there.
That was some past findings, but Rob and Brandon is working with another group to look at that again.
Okay, great. So it's Jacobs and Hughes Annex. Were there other actual physical properties? I know we have land.
The carriage house was one that was been brought up.
Oh, the Bates Carriage House.
Yes, and I talked to Dan Hoying today on another topic, but he was out at Fairview. And I think Steve Sipple brought it up, and he's like, well, you know, that's Melanie's pet project, so I'm going to informally meet with Steve and just do a little board member visit out there and, talk about it, because it sounds like his ideas are kind of, they're very similar to mine.
Right. So, and then the only thing that,
And then there's the Rawson House. There's already people feeling some hardscape for that one.
right, and then, the Heimel property, we still own.
Mm-hmm.
And final property, is there any other property? I know we have some things that we've considered thinking about selling. Possibly, we won't talk anymore about that, but I mean, there's some things we own that maybe other people might like to generate some revenue if there's a way to replace. I know we've talked also about consolidating some of the other areas or other sites where we have administrators or schools or what have you, and maybe bring them back here in some way, which would maybe make some space for preschools, save us some money. So right now, that's sort of where we are. We have property to dispose of or to develop, we have these buildings. And if it's okay with the committee, I think we'll put the growth piece on every one of the months.
Love it.
Is that good with you?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is programmatic too, so it's important the superintendent sits on this committee. It is about program. And Sarah, my recollection is that you said that we do have a company kind of studying our enrollment or where our students are. If you could speak to that.
Sure. So we work with Crocker GIS Consulting, and they do our, every year they geocode where our students live, and then do any other kind of geographical analysis that we ask for, such as if you guys remember that Live Attend report, which is where the students live and where they.
Yes.
So that is who we work with for those services.
Well, everybody knows how I feel about maps. As a social studies teacher. Will they be producing some maps for us?
Yes. So
Good.
the great thing is that they load this into like a live Google Maps thing, and so we can pull those maps and print them for you anytime we want. And so I can put that request into Jeremy Donahue if that's like printed versions or if you'd like the online version, but either one.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of digress from some of our work plan to build in more time to do the growth piece. And I don't know when that would be, if that's a September thing or an October. We could keep talking about it next month and then maybe do this map thing and then ultimately share it with the whole board. Sir?
So I love that idea so that would be not just where we would be speaking about these current expansions, but would that also include kind of the meridian plan or any other plan like that?
It could be boundary line.
Because you're going to see you saw it right before you came in, the article out the first day of school. They found one student who got on the wrong bus, and she called her mom. And it was Ms. Monroe Williams' daughter. But I wanted to highlight the learning for me was that it was, like, oh, and I, there are probably others, but overall, I've heard from teachers, I've heard Facebook posts, like, what a great, so there's going to be these nuances. So I thought, well, dig into this. And so it turned out that the student was in the north part of Mount Airy going to Clark Montessori. Well, you can't get there from here. And so I can't imagine, I wish I could see what the extra route looked like, because I bet it was multiple changes even on the extra route. We have a Montessori high school on that side of town. And I'm wondering how many more of these, like.
That's why we asked for the.
Yes.
This, and very frankly, I'm gonna call out not this administration, but previous administration, who have been unwilling to make that call. I mean, our Montessori kid, where they live, they had to go to Parker Wood, okay? And they're supposed to not be able to go when they go to high school, they have to go to Gamble. But these are things that are written, but somehow along the way, we stopped implementing what we've asked people to be doing. So I think that's part of the plan.
And it rolls up to finance in that, I mean, yes, it's a huge spend of a child's time. And there's a family I found out today in North Avondale, and their child is going somehow, I think, to College Hill. Well, that's it. We have all these great schools right around. And my simple question was, oh, why? Oh, well, that's where my cousin's kids go. So, well, I can't imagine getting a yellow bus. How do you build a route to get yellow bus kids to the west side? Right, yeah. Crossing over. I mean, anyway, it's a quality of life for children, but it's also, I just wonder if we could model what our savings would be from yellow bus. If we brought these down, we could build schools with it.
It's not just the high schools of choice, and we need to have some of them, and we need to also have some neighborhood high schools. It's about our elementary schools. Yeah. We've spent time programmatically improving them and making them more marketable. I mean, this is a long process to transition into it, but sooner or later, I think this is it. This crisis has given us the opportunity to really say we're going to bite the bullet and we're going to look at how we are organized, because we're currently organized based upon where we were 22 years ago or so, instead of where we really are now. So I think this is a great opportunity. But yes, let's focus in because this is where the strategic plan took the growth initial discussion. Jen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment about the Montessori, East West, all those changes. Just remember that there were seventh grade when that thing changed. They were grandfathered in for the next 5 years, and their siblings.
Yeah.
So it could take 12 years for this thing to go. Some of this things go away, unless you're willing to say stop.
And the reality is, when we do make these changes, you're probably going to have to grandfather people in to make it so that the community doesn't lose their mind. But the reality is, you can also start to change attitude if you change the behavior, and so it works. But yes, that's part of the reason. But I also think that there's great resistance, just bureaucratically as to who makes what decisions when. So, but if it's okay with the committee, we might forego some of the stuff that we usually do in these next couple of months while we have these folks here with us and emphasize it, because there is a sense of urgency to it.
Well, we don't have to forego, we'll just request written reports. Some of these, the tax incentive council could have been written, I mean, they're.
And it is.
Right, but we also have a presentation. We don't have to do all presentations on all the reports, and that would save time.
Yeah, but I think we can do it.
Keep it to 90 minutes.
Well, that's gonna,
right now we're at 95.
And we gotta also, if the preschool people are listening besides Ms. Brooks, if preschool would not take 45 minutes. We might have more free
They are our
time.
future, though.
Well, I know there are.
Our
And
future.
we relish those reports from you and from them, but yeah. And sometimes like enrollment only, then that wasn't just enrollment only today, so we're in good shape. But the last thing I think on the agenda, if people are ready to move off of where we are on growth, is this, the community every so often asks about why we don't have our own. And ever so often, somebody has to start to figure out why we don't. And we know it's financial, it's a bunch of other stuff, it's staff, employment. But it would be really good as I think Jen presented a page on the cost of transportation that probably Sarah presented or prepared. It wouldn't be a bad idea to look at that and see where we are spending a significant amount of money. So, are there things that maybe we can buy a fleet of buses? I actually went online and tried to figure out how much a bus costs. That's first stop there. I didn't Google very much further than that, but maybe there's things that we can do to limit our reliance on these. Many of them are, like one is a monopoly, tax-supported monopoly, and then the others are business, individual businesses, and so maybe there's things we can do. So that's something to be thinking about the next month or two, if we could. Go to the order.
Can I add
yeah, please.
one last thing? Going back to the question about food and cost, and because it was shared, I did see where it said all students at CPS, I heard you say a little different. And they have another twist on it, in that, I have a lot of confidence in our school meal program. And I know it's, we invest in it. We've done the great food purchase agreement or whatever. Now, as a parent, and not to, I feel always sorry for the, parents and the teachers who get my kids are probably like, oh my God. But, it's an opportunity, it's a window in. An email was sent this afternoon. Parents, please do your best to make sure your kids eat a full meal before they get to school. I heard grumblings. And our lunchtime will be at this time. I'm like, that's so weird. We have school lunch. So I wrote back and I said, thank you, I'm a little confused though, I'm like, blah, blah, we provide that. Please clarify. My assumption was they're eating when they get there. So I sent a note just to a friend who also works, and the response was, I'm not trying to throw anybody on the bus, but I think it's just something for us to kind of rally the troops. It said, well, they get breakfast if they want, then they don't eat, and it's definitely not that much food. So, I think we celebrate that we're providing these meals and all this stuff. Maybe we got to do a quality check if if the staff, don't believe it's enough, that they need to send notes to parents. It's going to take away from, I thought they're kidding me. So, anyway, I just wanted to, if we could just do a check-in on that. What?
Health and safety, food.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do health and safety.
Okay.
It's pretty remarkable. It's nationwide. We're among the best. But yeah, there's some confusion about it for sure. And I know too that I think it's been released now that Jessica Shelley's target about that good food and local food and stuff, she's shot way over her initial target. And maybe if we can refer that to health and safety.
Okay, Phyllis, there's another assignment.
What's that?
Yeah, breakfast to everyone. I just saw a wonderful distribution of breakfast at elementary and high school. A lot of them are using the kiosk. So the thing is, the kids have to pick it up to go eat it. So I don't know if that is some of the confusion that the kids have. hungry. But as far as portions of meals, we are following, there's guidelines for it. So everything, it is highly regulated. So we're following the guidelines, it's great food. A lot of the kids love the breakfast and the food. Certain things are more popular than others, like the little pancake sticks and dunking sticks and things like that. So we'll I don't know, I would just offline like to know.
Yeah,
Like-
and I just shared that in that situation, talking about the confusion of all schools or whatever,
Yeah.
just, kind of get some of these.
I think it's a banner for us. I mean, it's, it's probably one of the best directors probably in the nation that we have. But I'm with you, there is confusion about who gets the food. Because there's so much history about free breakfast or what they don't know, just like as we were trying to line up this thing with invested neighborhoods and they were learning about the kinds of foods that the kids are using. Are you kidding? It's this, it's that. Wow. There's a lot of education that needs to go on out there to have the community fully appreciate what we do. You're right, there's confusion on. Anybody have something to add besides go Reds, please? Yes, Madam Treasurer.
2 things for September.
Yes.
You wanted me to give a heads up.
Yep.
The first thing is that the big part of the agenda is going to be talking about the state foundation formula changes.
Yes, and I think Kevin kind of.
Yeah, and then the second one is Brenda Weimer's going to come with us because remember the city-county agreement that gave us money that paid towards our debt. Well, because we renegotiated an agreement with the city, we have to change some of the company methods.
Right.
And the recommendation is to pull that money back into the general fund because they're to pay cops, and the auditor doesn't like us paying the cops payment out of debt fund, they want it out of general fund. So we're going to explain all that on September, but Chair Lady
That's on my little corner list from when you and I met.
Yes, I wanted me to give you a heads up that was coming. We have plenty of time, we don't have to figure it out until December, but
No, let's get that
Make it
out of the
happen.
way.
thank you.
All right, good in the order. Thank you all. We are so
Thank
proud
you.
of everybody. Thank you for watching our money.